The reason why I like this quote is for those of us that are visually minded, it really does evoke a sense of emotion. Now, if we look around the world, we currently have some big brand, smart, successful organizations that are watering weeds. And let me give you the example of one. So organizations that have mandated an RTO, it's a policy that actually needs a review and a check of effectiveness. And so what organizations are doing is they're producing reports. And those reports are going to leaders to have conversations about compliance with their people on attendance. So what we've turned into is leaders that should be having enablement conversations about people doing their best work and being their best selves are actually having attendance conversations. Then we've got resentful employees turning up to the workplace to do a badge and bolt, a very clear symbol of how they're feeling. And so instead of actually doing a review of our policy and how effective and engaged our people are against that policy, we're throwing more water on the weed. We're putting CCTV in to actually look at monitoring people as they come into the workplace. So what we're doing is we're focused on existing in space as a metric of success, not time well spent. We're in the employee experience economy where employees are rising up and they want to work for a company that has a noble purpose. They want to work for a company that contributes socially. They want to prioritize health over wealth, and they want to feel empowered and trusted to do their best work. They are telling us that this is their pathway to enablement, to fulfillment, and their well-being, not only in work, but in life. And they are now really protective of the lifestyle they've created. The second thing is what really matters is the unintended consequences of not getting the balance of remote work and in-person gathering right. And what we're seeing is a rise in loneliness, isolation and disconnection, and then elements that the workplace gave us that we took for granted that are no longer there, or it is harder to get those elements. We're now seeing a rise in anxiety and confidence in employees. First step we need to do is look to the relationship between the me and the we. And that's the shared value that exists between employers and employees. And there are three elements. We know that employees fundamentally with integrity turn up to do their best work and perform. We know that employees need to have a sense of belonging to both team and organization. And we know that employees need to feel well as a result of working for that organization. Do we mandate an RTO or not? How many days should we be gathering or coming into the office? The real question is why to gather? And what I want to introduce to you now is a hypothesis that we've developed. We are focused on looking at how do you create values-driven flexibility for the individual combined with purpose-driven gathering for the business that delivers business results. Now, some of the narrative that we hear out of organizations is where when you put a mandated RTO in, you're trying to control gathering at the organizational level. What we believe is gathering should be personalized at 3 layers in the organization, that being the organization level, the team level, and the individual level. Now, at the organization level, the only thing that the organization should be focused on is rituals that are symbols of your employee experience or rituals that reflect the current context of your organization. And what I mean by that is if you're an organization that is going through a merger and acquisition, you need to put in faster or more regular communication rituals to ensure people are informed, they understand how the business is navigating through this, and they're confident in how they can talk to the merger acquisition inside or outside the organization. Outside of that, if that ritual is not culturally related or contextually related, the organization as a system needs to step off gathering. Now, where gathering really hits the road is the team level. And this is the accelerant of gathering because the team is where the work gets done. And the work, what I mean by work is this is based on the nature of the work the team does, the methods that they follow, right down to every individual that's in this team, the context of the team, the cycle that the team's in. So this is where the cadence of gathering is critical for an organization. But where our point of difference is, where we focus, is around the individual. And individuals have gathering needs themselves based on unique needs in their work life and their lifestyle. And those gathering needs actually change depending on what's happening within their life or their work. The reason why these 3 teardrops are in a circle shape is because gathering is not static. You can't set a gathering cadence and then forget it. It needs to remain active, which is relative to the context of the organization and the people that are in it. Now, another statement that organizations are coming out with is you need to come back to the office for 3 days a week because it improves productivity. We're more productive when we're together. But what they don't have sitting in between there is a narrative that gives substance to the why am I showing up. We see 3 things here where gathering is in service of a business benefit. The first one is to build social capital. And what I mean by that is that's both your social and your professional networks that actually help you feel human, but also get your job done. In my previous company, we used to call that the black market. There was very structured processes and government governance in place, but the black market is how you got stuff done quickly and moved mountains. The second thing is talking about increasing tacit knowledge. And so what we mean by that is how real-time content and understanding of the people dynamic in your organization can help you perform. The third thing is enhancing team effectiveness. And what we mean by that is that's either the nature of the work that needs to be done or how we go about doing the work. So what we've done is we've put this middle chevron in place, which is basically the intermediary benefits of getting gathering effectively working in your organization. And what you'll see there is you then see an end benefit or a primary benefit. Now, what organizations focus on in the first instance is productivity, but we all know the C-suite are also looking at engagement, retention, and attraction. What we want to focus on when we talk about gathering is not just about productivity, it's also around those people benefits of loyalty and advocacy, but also sense of belonging and well-being. Now, the reason why these people benefits are important is the last 4 conversations we've had with customers, 3 of the 4 have said they're starting to see that whilst performance is being maintained, they're starting to see a drop in engagement and connection. And so if you look at this model, what you're looking at is both a hypothesis and a business benefits map that your C-suite can be talking to. You can talk to your C-suite in a language about why the relevance of purpose-driven gathering is key. Now, what we're seeing here is a lead indicator that if we don't get gathering right, engagement and connection starts to falter. What we need to understand is the lag indicator going to be an impact on productivity, or is it going to be an impact on retention and attraction?
Listen, the topic that I think Jim brought up, aside from policies and code of conduct and etiquette and whatnot, is really rooted in maybe an issue of trust and maybe even psychological safety. If we cannot, feel comfortable coming in and be our whole self to an office, and I think there are other issues in the organization beyond, what an individual maybe has control over. Code of conducts are there, but if that psychological safety isn't there, then that those conversations, that connection, that social cohesion isn't going to happen, right? What regards to bringing people together, I've always, advocated we're human beings. We need that social connection. Even a remote first company will acknowledge that they even have once, twice, 3 times a quarter connections in person. So even a fully remote team has social connection and bringing people together. So it's not an exclusive, mutually exclusive thing, right? And that bringing people together does not mean you come into an office. I can meet a colleague in a third place and I'm still meeting in person. So I want to make sure we separate the issues of bringing people together with this occupancy use as the office debt conversation.
I think we get confused or bogged down with language. If you're a remote organization or a distributed organization or a hybrid organization, we're not saying, no, we're never going to meet. It's about understanding what is the cadence of those in-person interactions need to be and putting intentionality to those. Catherine, to answer, to respond to your commentary there, I actually think we need to be unpacking a little bit further where we don't generalize 1 to 2 times a year for a team. Once again, it depends on the attributes of that team, the nature of the work that they need to be doing, the methodologies they're based on, the tenure in that organization, and that will start to shift the dynamic of, or the cadence of when people should be coming together. And I'll generalize here, but an accounts payable team with very mature processes and a long tenured team doesn't need to come together as often as a newly forming project with newly forming team members into the organization that are working on potentially a highly critical project. The cadence of that could be different. And that's what I think we just need to start getting going to that next level of detail. Terry?
Now I want to share a little bit of how we've been thinking about partnering with organizations to help teams master the art of gathering. So, individuals, we talked about this before, but individuals have unique work styles and the need to align their work and personal commitments. You may be familiar with some leadership instruments such as strengths finders, leadership circle, Myers-Briggs, right? These are instruments where individuals can build more awareness about themselves so that they can work better with others. Now, imagine a tool where that could help you understand how you work, the needs for concentration time and collaboration time to highlight opportunities for where, when, and why gather. So we're excited to share the My Happy Place instrument. This instrument gathers information about individual work patterns and lifestyle attributes, and it provides recommendations for the types of behaviors people should consider as they optimize their work experience. Employees are given information that can help them choose the best work environment for the different modes of work. So whether it's to concentrate, collaborate, or build connection. So for example, if an individual indicates that they are new to a team or new to a role, then perhaps they have a weaker social network within the organization. And so the report would suggest that the person has a high need for building social capital and would suggest that they need to be more intentional about gathering or connecting with their colleagues, right? So yeah, David, we'd love to, get your thoughts on, since you took the assessment, maybe start with like, what did it validate for you that you already kind of knew about yourself?
Well, I knew that I always, for 15 years, worked in different places, rolled into coffee shops and, sequestered in a client's conference room. Hey, do you mind if I use this when our meeting's over, et cetera? Pushed myself to different geographics, traveled quite a bit for work. And so I knew it would reflect that. And it did. So I was, pleased that it was in line with my thinking.
Did it highlight anything that you weren't aware of?
Yeah, that I'm not really a team leader in conveying cultural tricks. I err on the side of letting teammates and co-collaborators and internal customers who end up being part of the team on a requirement or a project. I let everyone just kind of go, deal with the treadmill of the project. And I think from taking this assessment, I realized that, it sounds crazy after nearly 200 mosh pits where everyone's been screaming human-centric, people first for the most part. But I need to do more of that. That's what the assessment done. I need to convey that you don't necessarily have to be in the office. You don't necessarily have to work in a way that's uncomfortable for you. So yeah, it opened my eyes a bit.
Mm-hmm. So as a leader, like, what do you think like this would do if your team got, a report talking more about the trends and insights across the team?
Oh, I think it would be not just useful for the team in commercial real estate, as a few people here can attest to. We're fill and kill animals for the most part. So people are just going to do what they're going to behave the way they want to behave. These are nomad salespeople. But that said, as I think about the the customer and a number of you that are peer sellers that could be part of a project, I think getting everybody to take the assessment and then be aware of the different archetypes on the team is critical.
Thank you, David. Anything else you want to share about your experience taking it before I move on?
I will take, as Keith Moon, the drummer, the late drummer for The Who said, what is it? I'll take it. If you have an assessment, bring it my way.
Once we have all the individual data, the idea here is that we take the data and aggregate it and create a team report so that leaders can understand the makeup of their team and see themes and work-life patterns across the team. So this becomes very helpful, right? A helpful tool for those leading teams, especially managers who have to translate the gathering policies from the top while balancing the work and personal needs of their team members. And they can now use this to inform how they build or improve their team rituals and rhythms. So, and for example, if you have a lot of new people on your team working on very complex initiatives, the report may suggest the need for more gatherings for team building or kicking off projects, right? I'm going to go to the next slide here. Okay. So the other piece of work I want to cover is the team gathering playbook. And as I've rolled out hybrid and remote work over the years, this is one of my favorite tools or enablers is the team playbook or a set of team agreements. The data that we get from those assessments helps build the awareness and allows us to hyper-personalize the experience for individuals and teams. And it's just the starting point. In order to go from the assessments that you heard about previously to this set of team gathering playbooks, we have a series of team workshops that are held to surface the commonalities and the differences between team members, as well as the needs and requirements of the teams and organization. So really, this is about building alignment within teams and empowering decision-making at the team level. It's also about providing your managers and team leads with practical solutions that will help them create the team norms that they need to really address the unique needs of how their teams work. Okay. And another thing I want to highlight here is in my experience with building and creating these team agreements, sometimes the loudest voice in the room or the most senior person in the room can sway the conversations, and then decisions are made that may not be representative of the whole team. So we see this opportunity, we see this as an opportunity to actually use data from individuals and help level the playing field so that when team discussions do happen, that there is a common language and a foundational understanding of the makeup of the team. So really in getting to this, playbook, I believe the secret sauce is in having these rich and inclusive conversations with your teams to establish these norms. And in the example here, you can see that we're focused on norms for async versus sync and what should be virtual versus in person. So I think, Catherine, this kind of addresses what you were saying earlier. Not everything needs to be done in person, and we totally get that. But we're trying to empower teams to have those conversations to figure out what the rhythms and cadences are and what sort of etiquette norms they want to have in place and when virtual makes sense versus in person. So it's not just fully focused on the in-person, but we want it to break it down in a way that when you get to those in-person gatherings, that they truly are intentional, purposeful, and a good use of everybody's time, right? And then the idea behind these playbooks too is it's a living and breathing document for how and why teams gather, and it should change, should change as the team profile changes and as business needs change.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Lisa and Terry, for this. This is really, I love that there's tools like this out there, and I think that this is a great example of how the HR approach and the workplace approach, we really are after the same goal, but we really come after it at different ways and from different perspectives. And this is a great example of how we really need to partner to do this moving forward. I come from the workplace perspective, so I'm a workplace experience specialist. So I look at the employee experience from the places perspective of this. And I have in previous roles directly reported to the chief people officer. So I've had to look at it from both perspectives. The thing about team gatherings and gatherings in particular, I think where the workplace is especially important is understanding that, when people come in to gather to an office, whether it's at an individual level, an organizational ritual level, as you mentioned, or a team level to do team activities, the important thing about place is the knowledge that people are coming into your space to do that gathering, but that gathering is what, an hour and a half, 2 hours? But since they're there the whole day. So it's important to create an environment that still supports their ability to be autonomous in doing their job in the way they do their job. In the same way, I saw that Kelly had her hand raised earlier, and Kelly is such a champion on mental health and on diversity and mental diversity, neurodiversity, and all of that. And if you're going to get people to come into the office for whatever these events are, whatever the gatherings are, whatever the rituals are, from whatever level, whether it's team, individual, or organization, you still need to have a space somewhere in that environment that allows them to be their best selves, because people are not going to drive in all the way to an office. I'm sorry, no matter how amazing that gathering is, to spend an hour an hour there and an hour back to get there. They're not just going to go in there for that gathering. They're going to be wanting to work in that environment. So it is creating a space, and when we talk about gathering and people coming together to work together, we really have to see it from a holistic perspective in terms of workplace. And what is the entire workplace doing to allow people to maintain their autonomy when they get into that space to be able to be their best selves?
What I think has happened since COVID is people were so glad to see what their lifestyle opened up for their lifestyle. What they could remember in the first instance is what they disliked from pre-2019 or pre-2020. And so we have disconnected from what the joy of place gave us as humans in the professional environment. And what we want to do is, Lenny, you were saying the word create a lot. I'm going to add to that and make it and say curate. We need to curate experiences that connect people back to the joy of human connection. The second thing is one of the companies that we've been working with, where I talked about their engagement and connection has dipped. In those results, one of the cohorts where it has dipped is the long tenured employees, because they remember the culture that was when they came together and the experience that they had. And so they're grieving that. And so there is a lot of people that are grieving what they had, but they no longer have it and they don't know how to go about getting it. So organizations, we do have a responsibility to curate well-intentioned, purposeful, meaningful gatherings to get people to connect back in. There are people, more importantly, that are unconsciously grieving. They feel lonely, anxious, and they don't understand why, because the time gap between when we left the office in 2020 is we're now 2024. It can't be that I'm missing those people or that place. And so there is an unconscious grieving, but we need to help connect them back to this is what it is and how to take steps to shift that emotion.
I am absolutely 100% in agreement that as human beings, we have this innate biological desire to connect with other people and other humans. It's our survival mechanism. If you look back to the very start of when if you were to survive, you were part of a tribe, right? And so there's this distinct survival that, people should be getting together.
Return should be something that is removed from our narrative, and it goes back to the original statement that I opened up with, which was, what is the new language? What is the new mindset? And what is going to be a framework that moves us through this ambiguous period and ensures that we maintain that magic of human connection? And what I feel is we have got these, as I said, these big organizations watering these weeds that are growing underneath the surface and popping up in more organizations globally. And how do we put a pattern interrupt into that? And we believe that is through conversation that starts, and an understanding that starts with the individual, that focuses on the team, and then up to the organization, one that is personalized and dynamic. And Brian, I will close on your words, which is we need to continue to experiment and adapt, because Our individuals are changing, our teams are changing, and our organizations are changing. And therefore, it's only experimenting and adapting that will ensure that we maintain on the right side of the emotional state we need to be in regards to how we feel about gathering with other humans.
I wanted to add on, I'm just really inspired by the comments and the thoughts and reflections that were shared here today. I think that when I hear the questions and the elbows that were thrown in today, it makes me really optimistic about the path forward, that we all are trying to not go back to old ways, and we're trying to be really sensitive about what creating inclusive experiences and recognizing the needs of many individuals in all this. Really, I'm inspired by what you all have to say. I'm excited to learn from all of you in the
one of the things that was mentioned was the level of change, and certainly the pandemic was huge, but I don't think older workers necessarily are grieving, because in my experience, I've had to adapt to an incredible amount of change, from the internet not being there to it being everywhere, and helping to bring that forward into fruition. So I think that there's a real opportunity for more cross-generational curation, if you will. The question I have for you both is, I loved that that tool you showed and how a team could develop their playbook from it. I was wondering how managers respond to this, and do managers then participate so that their teams can see a little bit of their happy place?
Terry has this great sentiment that whether you have mandated a return to office or not, we have really left the emotional impact and the doing to the managers, and without the tools and the capability around them to be able to navigate effectively. And what we know is that this tool provides them with a language and a framework in how to have a conversation that creates inclusivity for their team and allows them to safely navigate through. So they not only get a report and a conversation with themselves in how they can start adapting their language now with certain individuals and with their team, but it guides them into a facilitated conversation and gives them the confidence to start navigating this. What I feel for managers who are trying to support a senior leadership that have mandated an RTO and dealing with the emotional impact of individuals in their team that are trying to grapple with how do they now adjust their lifestyle accordingly. So the answer is yes, managers are welcoming this.
I think it's when I worked with leaders in the past, I think there's a nice sense of awareness when you bring data to managers and leaders. There's something that they can really, like, they know that there's a starting point for the conversation instead of just being blind, right, by not knowing where to start when you're coming up with team agreements and how to really support all the individual team needs. So I think this is just a really nice way to really consolidate the data, bring together some insights that really help the leaders focus, because it can be, like, I think about the roles of managers, there's so much on their plate, there's so much they need to do, there's so much administrative stuff, plus on top of this, and trying to facilitate conversations, this helps them, I think, get a step closer, because now they can really focus on those high priority needs, because the data is suggesting certain themes about work and life patterns that they need to pay attention to.